Welcome to the Growth and Influence podcast. My name is Andrew Schultz. I am your host, and today we're talking about how to convert more of your lead database into meaningful pipeline, not MQLs, but meaningful leads in the pipeline that are likely to go deep in that pipeline and sales process. So if you are a CMO, a demand gen leader, or any other marketing leader who is focused on converting leads into pipeline and you need to do it better, then this episode is for you. We're going to talk about the process that you can use to improve that process, to improve those results at your company and produce more pipeline and help your company grow more efficiently and profitably. Welcome to the Growth and Influence podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Schultz, and this podcast is about the fascinating convergence of two massive movements or principles in our economy: persuasive marketing and selling, and personal development. The principles that lead to personal growth and happiness are not always aligned with the principles of persuasive marketing. And yet, almost anything that can serve people and the world has to be marketed. We're in search of answers. Let's go. Okay, so I want to talk about where you are right now to start. I see probably two scenarios that are possible for you. Number one, you may be focused on converting more leads into pipeline, and because it hasn't been working, you've shifted your focus from the lead to pipeline conversion and you're going back to the very top of the funnel in order to get more leads or to search for higher quality leads with the idea that either a greater volume or higher quality are gonna lead to more people ending up in the pipeline. Or number two, you may be just hammering on this lead database that you have, trying to figure out what's gonna work and nothing's working yet, or at least not as well as you'd like it to. In either of these cases, we're going to talk about the process and the strategies and tactics you can use today to improve that lead to pipeline conversion rate so that you can start to grow your company more profitably and efficiently. So let's just go back to the very beginning. One of the main problems is that you probably started with the idea of marketing a product. And instead, you need to start with the idea of serving a customer. And I know it sounds hokey. Maybe it sounds a little bit rudimentary. Maybe you even claim that we did that. We started with the idea of, like, who's our customer and what can we do for them? But most of the time at companies with multiple teams, multiple layers of management, this whole process gets lost and everybody ends up focusing on how to take a product to market and get leads for that product and convert those leads for that product into pipeline for that product. And it just never feels like it should for that customer who you want to serve, but you end up just talking about yourself or at least feeling very self-centered. So the first thing you have to do is start with a deep understanding of your ICP. I know, again, stay with me because I know you probably would argue that you've already done this, but it's not translating into all the work that you're doing, especially at this lead conversion level. Most leads enter your lead database, they get pitched a demo, or they get sent a newsletter, and it just doesn't feel like you have any focus on them. And the main problem, or the main question they're trying to answer is, can this company solve my problem? Can this company solve a problem that I have that's causing me pain? And if you're talking about the ROI that your product produces with other customers, or if you're talking about case studies from other customers, or your brand, or any of those things, you're not communicating with them at the level that they need. They need you to demonstrate that you understand their problem. And as Jay Abraham purportedly said, if you can describe your customer's problem better than they can, then they will immediately assume that you have the solution. But until you've done that, there's doubt in their mind about whether you're the right solution, or if you can only solve 75% of their problem, or if there's something else that would fit better with their tech stack, or whatever it is. There's all this friction and doubt in their mind. The first thing you have to do is demonstrate to them that you understand their problem even better than they do. Now, here's where the personal development angle for today's podcast comes in, because I am committed to both a podcast about marketing and personal development. So think about this from a personal perspective. People don't care about you. And I'm not saying that in like the big downer kind of existential way that you're alone in the universe. That's not what I mean. What I mean is when people make decisions about what they are going to do with their time, their energy, their emotional focus, their mental focus, they're not doing it with you in mind. They're doing it with themselves in mind. And so if you're going around with expectations for other people regarding how they behave towards you in your life, and this could be just an intrapersonal, but it also applies to this marketing situation, then you are going to be frustrated and disappointed a lot with the way other people respond to you, treat you, and interact with you. So from a marketing perspective, here, if there's any inkling at all of the attitude of, well, we built this great product, we built this great brand, we have, we've worked so hard on marketing, people should respond, people should be interested, people should be willing to jump on a sales call, you're already dead. You're in the wrong place. You need to be fully focused on giving them exactly what they want and need. And then they will do those things, but not because there's an obligation, because of anything that you've done or any quality in your product or any comparison to competitors or any of those things. Those don't matter to your lead. Okay, your brand doesn't matter to your lead. I don't care about car brands if I don't know that a car is what I need to solve my problem. They can brand market to me all day long, and I won't care. Okay, It's not even about product quality, because I don't care how good a car is built if my problem isn't solved by getting a car, or if I don't understand that that's the solution. So none of that stuff matters until they know that you are the solution to their problem, and then those things start to come into play. So when you get this lead in your lead list, and in today, if you have a large database of leads and they're not converting, I would go back to square one and I would start to build a relationship with them. Now, I'm not talking about a passive, non-aggressive lead nurture program here where you kind of let them choose their own adventure through all the content that you've ever produced until they, click that book a demo on your website, which we've already established isn't happening, at least not nearly often enough. I'm talking about being direct. This doesn't have to take a long time, but you build a relationship by doing what I just said, demonstrating that you understand their problem on a deep level, that you understand them on a deep level, and you can do this with some highly focused assets that you can use. You don't have to create new stuff every week or every month or every quarter. You create a sequence of assets that demonstrate for this ICP that you understand them, you're building a relationship with them, and teaching them how to solve their problem, and then offering your product as a way to help them do it faster, better, cheaper, easier, with more certainty of the result that they are looking for, or with more enjoyment, more fun. Those are the 6 ways that your product can help. But you got to remember, your product doesn't solve the problem. So you use email, webinar, text message, videos. You can run a challenge even if you want to really, that's a little bit more work than the others, but if you really want to get up to your elbows in this, you can run a challenge which will give people the opportunity to start solving their problem with your help, your expertise, and your product. And by the end of that challenge, many more of those people are going to be ready to convert into the next steps that you want them to take. But that's also true for the webinar or highly, highly potent email, text messaging sequences, those kinds of things. I know you're already running emails. You may be already doing text. If you're doing PLG, you have your user is nothing more than a lead when they're free. And you got to understand that. I think you're way too optimistic if you think your free PLG user is anything more than a lead. It's just a lead. And you're probably already doing email, text, you're doing in product, maybe like tours if you're running PLG, but you need to shift the focus of those things to what I'm talking about now, and you're going to convert many more of those people into the next step that you want them to take. So you build that relationship. It doesn't have to be slow. You use it with the assets that I just mentioned, with a focus on your deep understanding of them, teaching them how to solve their problem, and giving them the tools and assets they need to solve that problem. And then when you do this, you're already addressing problems downstream. If you think about your whole business growth problem, and if you're a demand gen leader, this may not be the thing that you're really concerned about, but if you're a CMO, it definitely is. When you run it, you produce a lead and you put it into the pipeline, and then you lose to competition, or the sales process gets dragged out, or they end in no decision halfway through your pipeline. All of those problems can be addressed and improved if you're doing this process right here when you convert them into pipeline. Okay, that process of creating this relationship, which can happen fast, again, doesn't have to be slow, but when you do that, you're going to create a stickier, more interested, and more trusting prospect in your pipeline that's more likely to stay. Or if you're PLG, you put them into a paid subscription, they're more likely to stick around when you've done this right. Okay, finally, 2 last things. Remember that throughout this process, not just in one of those messages, not just at one point, you want to offer them a result. It's not, you have a problem, here's my product. It's, you have a problem, here's the solution. And you have to understand that your product is not the solution. Products do not solve problems. I mean, unless it's a super rudimentary, basic problem, products don't solve it. Even if my problem is that my feet are cold, if you're selling me socks, that would solve my problem, but I got to put the socks on my feet. And I got to fit them inside of my shoes. I got to remember to wear them. I've got to wash the socks. I've got to make sure that they're in my sock drawer. Even that basic problem, the sock as the product doesn't just solve it. It solves most of it, but there are other things that have to happen. But when you're talking business problems, your product will never, ever solve the problem. And if you market like it does, you're already missing out on everything I've talked about, because your prospect understands that they can't just flip a switch and solve their problem. So when you talk about your product as if it does that, then they're already suspicious. There's already a disconnect. You've placed the burden of understanding, hey, is this the right thing for my problem? You put it back on their shoulders. And now there's work and uncertainty and vagueness in their mind about, is this the right thing? Now I've got to do all this work to research this and find out if it's the right thing. You take that on you as a marketer. If it's an enterprise sale, like, of course, there's going to be more of that that's going to happen in the sales process. But as far as connecting with the problem and getting them into that next step, you take that on your own shoulders. It's your job to demonstrate that their problem is X, and you are here to solve exactly that problem. Okay, and if you claim your product does it, they're not going to believe you, and it's not going to work. So the last thing, and this is going to be for a lot of you, it's probably going to be a little counterintuitive or countercultural, at least based on what you've been doing in the past. But all of this will work better if you run it under a personal brand. So if you have somebody at your company who can be the face of your company and who can generate or create this relationship that I'm talking about here with your lead database and convert them into the next step, you're going to convert more highly than if you're just doing this under a corporate brand. Because I understand branding. I know that branding is powerful, but people don't really have a relationship with a faceless logo. They may trust a faceless logo. And some of the greatest brands in the world, I know, like Coca-Cola or whatever, maybe people feel like they have a relationship with them. But your software product, if you're a SaaS marketer today, you don't have that brand, and you're not going to. you're solving a business problem, and your brand can be very powerful, but the person, the entity that you're using to develop a relationship with this lead and get them into the next stage, it's going to be more powerful if it's a person. So I don't know if it's your founder, if it's a charismatic person, expert in solving this problem at your company, if it's a spokesperson that you hire, any of those things could work. But when you run it under that person, a couple of things happen. Number one, that person can share expertise with your lead. That's not just like it's not dry, like kind of corporate counsel that's coming from a brand about, okay, here's how we help our customers solve the problem. Because do you see the problem there? The minute you say this is how we help our customers solve this problem, you've already shifted away from them back to like, we're selling a product, this is what we do. The focus is a little bit back on you. When it's a person, that person can tell a story about how they went through this problem themselves, or how they learned this solution, how they had the epiphany that made this solution come into being, how they learned this expertise. They could tell stories about a person that they know who they've helped, and that's just much more effective than a brand that's just like a software brand sharing a case study. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, I'll just go through these steps again so that you have them here at the end. You got to start not by marketing a product, not by thinking about taking a product to market, not thinking about your go-to-market motion. All important things, but you must start with a passionate desire and a like blinders on, an undeviating desire to solve a problem that a particular customer has. That's number one. And then you have to make sure that the fidelity to that particular focus is absolute throughout any of the teams, layers of management, etc., that are going to be working on this process of converting leads. And really, like, throughout anything that happens in marketing, probably sales too, if you have that capability. Because people don't care about you, they care about themselves. They're going to make decisions about themselves. So you can't be thinking, we're doing such a good job, we have such a good product, people should be interested. You need to connect to what people actually want and what they are interested in and give them that. And that doesn't mean you have to build a new product. It just means you have to connect to the problem that they have and understand how to communicate with them about that and help them solve it. Okay, then you build a relationship with the lead. It doesn't have to be slow. You can do this through email, SMS, webinar, video, challenges, anything else that you can think of. There are many different mechanisms, but you're going quizzes, assessments, any of those things. You're going to build a relationship, and you're going to do it quickly by helping them understand that you understand their problem. And that is the number one thing you can do to build that relationship and get them to trust you. And then I'll just remind you here that addresses problems that are downstream. When you start this way, you're going to have fewer people ending in no decision, losing to competitors, shopping around, having price concerns, or any of the things that you don't want to happen downstream. So you combine this product with things that will solve their problem. And I actually didn't go into this, but if the product doesn't solve the problem alone, but there are other things that will help solve the problem. And those are things like expertise, experience, knowledge, processes, decision trees, frameworks, specialized approaches, specialized standard operating procedures, any of these kinds of things that you can offer with your product, either in the marketing or bundled with your product. We won't go into this today, but there are ways that you can bundle your product with these things in a way that will actually increase your close rate, or at least increase your whatever the conversion is that you're looking for. If that's into the sales pipeline, you can do that. There are ways you can bundle these things But you can also just offer them throughout your marketing to develop this relationship. But those are all necessary to solve the problem, and you should be providing all of those things, not just a software license. If you really want your company to grow in the way that I think you want the company to grow. And finally, run this under a personal brand, because people will trust that more. They'll develop a stickier relationship with a personal brand, and you will be able to get better results across this whole process. So that's the episode for today. This is the Growth and Influence podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed it. And if you have, consider giving us a 5-star rating on your podcast application, sharing this with your friends or colleagues who you think are also interested in this kind of value, and you'll be doing them a favor, and you'll be spreading good content throughout the industry and through your network. So I hope this has been helpful and enjoyable for you. That's all for the Growth and Influence podcast today. We'll see you next time.